80 years ago today, one of the worst maritime disasters happened in wartime. This video is not for the faint of heart, as it is a tragic story and it needs no introduction. If we were to ask you this question, what was the worst maritime disaster in history? You would think the sinking of the RMS Titanic, a ship we're all familiar with. But what about the sinking of the USMS Arctic, or the Lusitania, the Empress of Ireland, the SS Atlantic, the SS Eastland, the HMHS Britannic, the Sultana, or the Halifax explosion, the deadliest man-made explosion before the dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima? If you were to combine all the casualties of the major maritime disasters that were mentioned, you would get a grand total of 9,400 plus, give or take. But did you know there's a ship sinking in history that actually killed more than all of the casualties that were mentioned? This is the story of the MV Wilhelm Gustloff, a German cruise ship that was built for the Nazi Strength Through Joy or the Kraft der Freude organization. It was named after the leader of the Nazi Party's Swift branch, Mr. Wilhelm Gustloff, who was assassinated by a Jewish medical student in 1936. The ship was the first purpose-built cruise ship for the German Labor Front, and her purpose was to provide recreational and cultural activities for German functionaries and workers. The ship was built in Hamburg, Germany by builder Blom and Voss as the yard number 511. The keel was laid down on August 1st of 1936, and the ship would be completed in less than 2 years later, and her maiden voyage was on March 28th of 1938, with an unofficial maiden voyage happening between 24th and 27th of March 1938. From March 14th, 1938 to August 26, 1939, the ship took over 80,000 passengers with a total of 60 voyages. But on September 1st of 1939, the Wilhelm Gustloff's fate will be changed forever, and this fate will be a massive war unlike no other. World War II was started on the 1st of September of 1939. It started when Nazi forces invaded Poland and staged false flag border incidents. The United Kingdom responded and put their foot down with an ultimatum for Germany to cease military operations. However, these orders were ignored, and 2 days later, the United Kingdom and France declared war on Germany. The Wilhelm Gustloff served as a hospital ship within the early years of the war, designated as Lazarus Schiff D from September 1939 to November of 1940. On the 20th of November, medical equipment would be removed and repainted from hospital colors to naval gray. She would be used as a barracks ship for 1,000 U-boat trainees of the 2nd Submarine Training Division. She would sit in dock for 4 years, and interestingly enough, the trainees for the Submarine Training Division served as extras for an anti-British propaganda movie focusing on the Titanic disaster on board a German ship, the SS Cap Arcana. The ship was even used as a stand-in for the RMS Titanic, and this movie would be banned by propaganda Prime Minister Joseph Goebbels. In mid-January of 1945, Operation Hannibal was conducted, with planning started in late 1944, done quietly since Hitler opposed measures. The operation conducts a naval evacuation of German troops and civilians from East Prussia and German-occupied Baltic states as the Soviets' Red Army advances from the east. Wilhelm Gustloff's final voyage was to evacuate citizens, military personnel, and technicians from Courland, East Prussia, and Danzig, West Prussia. The passenger and cruise list cited 6,050 on board, but did not include many individuals who boarded without being listed on the ship's manifest. A survivor and German archivist, Heinz Schahn, conducted the ship carried 10,582 passengers and crew. Majority were 8,956 civilians, and the ship carried 4 captains on board: the primary captain, which is Frederick Pearson, 2 merchant marine captains, and captain of the U-boat complement housed on the vessel. The argument on all 4 captains were basically hugging the shallow waters close to shore without lights on to prevent being attacked by submarines. The biggest drawback to this one is the risk of collision. Frederick Petersen headed for deep waters, which was cleared of mines. He even activated the ship's navigational lights to avoid a possible collision, making the Wilhelm Gustloff visible in the dark. Turns out questioning authority would be one of the biggest contributions to the prelude of the sinking. The Gustloff left the port of Gottenhaven, accompanied by 2 torpedo boats and the liner Hansa, which was carrying civilian and military personnel. Unfortunately, Hansa and 1 torpedo boat developed mechanical issues and could not proceed on. The Germans did not mark her as a hospital ship, and since she was transporting military personnel, she didn't carry any protection under international accords. The ship was sighted by a Soviet submarine S-13 under the command of Alexander Marisko, followed the ships for 2 hours before making their next move, surfacing the submarine and steered towards the Wilhelm Gustloff's stern. Marisko ordered his crew to launch 4 torpedoes, but only 3 of those torpedoes were fired. The first torpedo struck the ship's bow, another into the accommodations for Women's Naval Auxiliary located in the ship's drained swimming pool. 3 of the 373 women survived, and the final hit was in the engine room, disabling power and cutting off communications. 9 lifeboats could be lowered, and the rest had frozen in their davits and had to be broken free. 20 minutes after the torpedo's impacts, the Wilhelm Gustloff listed dramatically to port that the lifeboats lowered on the starboard side crashed into the tilting side, destroying many lifeboats and spilling its occupants. For 40 minutes, the Wilhelm Gustloff was lying on her side, and she sank bow first 10 minutes later into 44 meters of water. The many deaths were caused by direct torpedo impact or drowning in the onrushing water. Some fatalities were due to the stampede caused by panicking passengers on stairs and decks. Many passengers jumped into the icy Baltic Sea, and around this time in January, the temperature would be 39 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius. This was a cold night with an air temperature of -10 to -18 degrees Celsius, as majority of those died due to exposure in the water. Nearby German forces pulled 1,252 from the water, as 13 of the survivors died, and all 4 captains survived. There was a naval inquiry against Lieutenant Commander Zahn, but unfortunately, his degree of responsibility would never be resolved due to the fall of Nazi Germany in May of 1945, thus ending World War II in Europe. A notable survivor, as we all know, is Eric Braeden, as you may remember him for his role as Victor Newman on The Young and the Restless, and John Jacob Astor IV in the 1997 James Cameron film Titanic. He was 3 years old at the time of the disaster, and he recalled the implosion of the Grand Staircase as one of the most traumatic scenes he ever had to film, and we can't imagine the horror he had to face when he had to go through that scene after he survived a massive ship sinking on a huge scale. It wouldn't take long for S-13 to strike again at another ship, the General von Steuben, killing 4,500 people that boarded the ship. A video on the Steuben has already been done, as a card and a link will be provided. Today, the wreck of the Wilhelm Gustloff is classified as a war grave. 19 nautical miles offshore from Leba and west of Władysław is one of the largest wrecks on the Baltic Sea floor and it previously attracted treasure hunters searching for the lost amber room. The wreck is protected by the Polish Maritime Office in Gdynia, as it is prohibited to dive within a 500-meter radius, or 1,600 feet, of the wreck. We at History Inside a Nutshell would like to take the time to honor the 9,400 plus victims that died on board the Wilhelm Gustloff. As we understand that the casualties were of course German military officers, Gestapo, and other affiliations with the Nazi Party, but keep in mind that the majority of the casualties had nothing to do with them. They were innocent victims of war, and they did not ask to die.